What's up, guys? I'm KBHD here on an absolutely frigid day in the Northeast. It's December, but that won't stop autofocus episode 4. This is a McLaren 720S. You may have heard of it. So McLaren pretty much exclusively makes high-end sports cars. They have their 540, their 570 GT. Then they have their Super Series, which includes the 720S. And then they have their $1 million hypercars, the P1 and the Senna. So as you may have seen from my Twitter or Instagram, I've had a couple days with the 720S. It's been ridiculous. Here are my 5 favorite features. Number 1 is performance. Everything about this car is fast. Now by the numbers, you would expect that. 700 plus horsepower, weighing around 3,000 pounds. It's super nimble. It's rated 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. It puts down big torque numbers. This is clearly one of the fastest rear-wheel drive cars, period. But here's my favorite part. McLaren is very, very conservative with their estimates for what the 720S is rated for. It's rated to do 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. But there are videos all over YouTube of it doing 2.6, 2.5, 2.4. It's faster than that off the line. There are owners putting it on dynos and getting bigger horsepower numbers than McLaren is claiming. The theory is McLaren doesn't want to make their $1 million P1 and Senna customers too angry, because the 720S is actually just as fast as those cars. This $300,000 car is apparently just as fast, sometimes faster around a track, than the $1 million P1. Unreal. So you probably never feel the full extent of that awesome acceleration and that 200 mile an hour plus top speed, especially not me, because I'm driving a $300,000 car that isn't mine on the streets of New Jersey in the winter. But what I do feel and notice really is how fast the shifting is. With the paddle shifters, it's instant. So you want to accelerate while you're cruising in 6th or 7th gear, you can drop down 2 gears real quick as you get on the gas, and it's all super responsive. Also, for a gas car and for a rear-wheel drive car, it's quick off the line, yes. But something you really notice, and this is coming from someone who regularly drives a P100D, is the 60 to 100 speed. That speed after 60 miles an hour is really fast. So yeah, it's a fast car. Again, New Jersey, potholes, cold weather. It's so hard to demo, but trust me, this is fast. So number 2 is the aero. Now, generally a supercar's shape is designed to cut through the air as efficiently as possible at high speed, and they all sort of do that, but this one takes it to another level. You can have crazy numbers on paper, really big horsepower and torque, etc. Anyone can have big specs, but there are so many little things that you have to do with aerodynamics that make it just a little bit faster. It starts on this car with those headlights you saw in the intro. The actual headlights themselves are just the slits in the middle and the top, and the rest of that area is actually a carbon fiber lined opening for air to pass through the front of the car to cool the brakes. So the air goes through the front, past the wheels, through the holes in the door. So these are some of the most incredible doors to a car I've ever seen, as there's massive slots for air to pass through them. And then when the air finishes over the back wheels, some also goes up past the engine and out the back over the rear wing. This whole car is a teardrop shape around the mid-engine, and you're basically in a cockpit cutting through the air. It's kind of amazing. Visibility is also surprisingly good too when the wing is down, but I do have to say when the wing is up, it cuts into your rear visibility a bit. Luckily, there's a button to put the wing up or down at any time. It's down by default at lower speeds, but having it up is better for downforce, and it can flip up to vertical to be used as an air brake from really high speeds. That's actually a perfect segue into why I had the car in the first place. McLaren partnered with OnePlus to make a McLaren edition phone, the OnePlus 6T. So their theory is the same way things like Aerodynamics can make an already fast car faster. They've also done some things for this phone to make an already fast phone faster than it already was. So there is a new design with little hints of carbon fiber in the top, and it's got that McLaren orange. But this phone also now has what they're calling warp charge, so an even faster fast charging, and it also now has 10 gigs of RAM. So thanks to OnePlus for sponsoring this video and getting me in touch with McLaren for this. All right, now back to the car. So number 3 is the modes. Now, pretty much any sports car at all nowadays has some sort of like a comfort mode and a sport mode, maybe a sport plus mode or something like that. But this is a sort of next level of modular adjustment that I can appreciate. It actually splits the modes into 2 mode dials, one for handling with the H up top and one for performance, the P. And each of them has their own comfort, sport, or track, so C, S, or T. So you can independently decide you want your handling stuff, which is steering weight, suspension, traction control, that type of thing, to feel more comfortable, while you want the performance, or how much power the engine is putting down, to be more sporty, or vice versa, whatever you want. And then anytime you put any one of these in track mode, the car dramatically takes your entire dashboard and flips it down to hide all the unnecessary information, and just gives you a new narrow screen at the top that shows your gear, your RPMs, and your speed. That's it. Super badass. And there's also a mode called variable drift control, which lets you literally in the car's display dial in an angle you want to drift at. But again, New Jersey, winter, potholes, didn't really get to try that. But number 4 is the design. This car turns so many heads. Not only is it red and a McLaren and loud, but there's just so many cool, unusual bits of design on this car that look like nothing else. The exhaust lifted way above the road level where it's more visible and louder. The doors that not only flip up, but also have windows in the top of them, so you kind of have this little sunroof and a little extra headroom when you're sitting in the cockpit. And this is my favorite steering wheel of all time in any car I've ever driven, which is pretty important. It's like having a favorite display of a phone. It's the main way you interact with it all the time, so it's important that you like it. The headlights are pretty mean looking. The whole front end is so low with that front splitter, and also the rear end, whether the wing is up or down, is always a looker. So even more than the NSX or any other car I've driven, people are taking pictures from the sidewalk, from next to you on the road. So much Snapchat happening. I already get asked if I play basketball, like a lot, but I've never been asked more if I play in the NBA than when getting out of this car. And then once you park this thing, I'd say half the times I came back to it in a parking lot, someone was either waiting at the car or taking pictures with it, or just wanting to talk to somebody about it. It's kind of hilarious. I wish I'd mic myself up for these conversations, because half the time they were amazing like conversation starters with people who used to work with car companies, or they'd test drive cars, or they have a friend with a sports car, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then last but not least, number 5, is all the little things, the details, the amazingly geeky, well-considered details. I mean, I guess for $300,000, you should consider all the details. But yeah, they do. I'm talking about the sound of the engine and the turbochargers every time you accelerate, the startup sound, and just how badass this car constantly sounds. There is a front trunk that's actually pretty big, bigger than my Tesla, and I didn't get a clip of it, but the backup camera shows up on the huge screen behind the steering wheel, which is pretty smart. And the relatively minimal looking interior, despite being surrounded by tech and even a lot of speakers actually, and possible distractions everywhere. And the fact that when you put the wing up, since it blocks the taillight, there's another light on the wing that replaces it, so you're always visible. And just the amount of carbon fiber in this car, from the front splitter, to the headlights, to the engine bay, to the rear diffuser, right through the interior on the steering wheel and everything. Driving this car, to me, feels like Tesla Roadster training wheels, which is probably weird to say, because I think most people would probably take this over a Tesla. But you can't get over the fact that it's rear-wheel drive, and an all-wheel drive car, to me, always feels more planted and stable and under control, especially when you're really driving it. But bottom line, this car is just insane in so many ways. It's like it has too much power for its own good. I only got to drive it for a couple of days, but honestly, you learn a lot messing with a car like this, and I hope to do it again someday. Until then, thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.